uppercut, uppercut, sonic boom! Well, hello there, humans, if these other things, however you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and if you're lucky enough indeed to be doing it too. Welcome back to the channel, I'm Bushka, and today we're going to be talking about the top 5 CQC weapons in PUBG Mobile. And by CQC, I mean, of course, Close Quarters Combat. These are the 5 weapons that I think are the best for winning very, very close brawls and gunfights. This weapon here is sadly no longer in the top 5. This is the M249. But I just wanted to include this because even though I think the M249 wouldn't even make my top 10 CQC weapons now, it is glaringly obvious that whatever the weapon, as long as you use it properly and you play to your strengths, you can be successful with it. And so if your favorite gun is not on this list, don't get upset. It's not that it's a terrible weapon. It's just that for me, I am purely and simply looking 100% at close, tight combat situations. And this list has been dramatically affected by update 1.5, which is why the UMP has leapfrogged all the way from outside the top 10 into the top 5. And coming in at number 5, this is the highest ranked SMG on the list. Previously, the Uzi or the MP5K would have been right up there on this list. In fact, in the last CQC, there was a lot of SMG work. But the UMP really outshines its opposition now. It's received buff after buff after buff since the change from 9mm occurred. Its time to kill is now 0.258 seconds. That's how long it takes to clear a level 2 vest at 0 meters. And its rate of fire has dropped all the way down to 0.086. It originally was 0.094 seconds per round a long time ago. It's been buffed and buffed and buffed. It also has explosive damage, which means that if you hit limbs, arms, legs, then you are going to do extra damage compared to the normal damage ratio of a weapon like the M416 or a SCAR-L. Couple that with the fact that the UMP also has no recoil. Like, the recoil is pointless. It is so easy to fire. You have this beautiful hip fire weapon that has no recoil, extra damage to limbs, so I mean just close quarters spraying is where it's at, and a very, very user-friendly lower rail attachment. Like, you can put a vertical foregrip, you can put a comp, you can use a suppressor. It runs 35 in a clip, and each round hits hard, like 42 base damage on these rounds, 42.8. Your M416 has 40.9. So you're looking at a round that's 5% harder hitting than an M416, fires like 10% faster, and it also has explosive damage. That makes the UMP a really undersung gun. In fact, in the competitive scene of Game for Peace, the Chinese version of PUBG Mobile, which is usually a patch or two ahead of us, the UMP has been the go-to weapon for switch, like with an M416 or an M16 in your second and a UMP in your primary. It has been that go-to switch weapon for quite some time now. I don't see that quite yet in the competitive scene in PUBG Mobile, but it is becoming more and more accepted that the UMP is the UMOP. The one thing that holds the UMP back is its bullet speed. At 365 meters per second, that is very, very slow. And the reason that's important is the faster a round gets to the target, the quicker the damage takes effect. And once you take that target out, any rounds that are left in the air no longer exist. So having good bullet speed is not just good for your versatility and your rate of and your range fire, it also is good for time to kill. And that's why the AKM sneaks in here at number 4. Despite having a lower time to kill than a lot of the SMGs, in fact, just about all of the SMGs, it's slower than a Vector, an MP5K, an Uzi, a UMP, a Tommy gun. It's 0.288 time to kill is actually pretty good, but it's got 2 things going for it. Firstly, it's got AR bullet speed, about 714 meters a second, which is double that of the UMP. And then it's got that stupid 47.9 base damage, which translates into massive headshots. Think of this. Every time you press the trigger or press the button, you start at 0. And when you start at 0 and your first round is a headshot with an AKM, you've already taken 3/4 of the enemy's health. It is not a joke. And how many times have you died in CQC to someone running an AKM and you're like, that's bollocks. That's absolute bollocks. So I was ripping that guy.
Let's go.
And then all he did was hit you in the head. And a headshot with an AKM is the most damaging AR headshot in the game. And it's something none of the SMGs can bring to the table. So you've got that massive alpha strike, you've got good time to kill of 0.288, and you've got a massive advantage in terms of headshot damage. All those things combined to make the AKM suddenly post 1.5 update and the unified rate of fire an incredibly valuable weapon. And it was almost a tiebreaker between the AKM and the UMP, but the AKM is just so much more versatile. You can use this at much longer ranges, you can put a 4x on it and tap fire, and those things in a tiebreaker for me are important. So we move on to number 3, and this is the Groza. Now the Groza is obviously the AKM on steroids. It's like someone took an AKM, shoved a great big horse needle in it, full of bloody anabolics, and just sent it off into the wilderness. And this is what it came up with. Same base damage, same kind of crazy good AR bullet speed, which means it's way more versatile, much less recoil. The recoil on the Groza, despite having a very high rate of fire of 0.076 seconds per round and a time to kill of 0.228 seconds, this gun just doesn't have the recoil of the AKM. It's a marvel of modern Soviet engineering to have the Groza doing the things it does, but it does them, and it does them awfully well. I mean, look at that. That's not hard recoil to control. That is not hard recoil to control. Although I am playing on an iPad Pro, which is a television screen basically, so maybe I shouldn't be speaking out of school. Update 1.5 did so much to the game, and it also gave us an incredibly difficult decision to make as to the most valuable CQC weapon in PUBG Mobile. Now, as anyone who's a long-time fan or subscriber to the channel would know, I am a huge Mark 14 believer, and I still find it constantly in crates. People prefer the M416, which I find ludicrous, but anyway. And the Mark 14, which you can see here, for me, I was honest. I think I'd prefer to have an MG3 than a Mark 14 in my hands right now. And I mean that in versatile terms. If I was just going to play solos, then I would totally just run a Mark 14. But if you're playing squads, you will often have situations where you just don't have time to hit your reload. And this is where the Mark 14 falls down. I am more experienced than just about any of my mates at running this gun. And I still sometimes get too far away from hard cover and end up in situations where I just don't get the reload in. And that's why, despite having the fastest time to kill, the most fantastic bullet speed, a 60 base round which gives you crazy ass headshot damage, and all the rest of it, I had to put the Mark 14 at number 2 in my list. Because although it is an incredibly versatile weapon, it's the kind of weapon you can run as a super effective DMR or just an absolute haymaker of a close quarters combat weapon. And you can see I'm running the Mark 14 here, and I run it in preference to just about anything else. If I'm being honest, the number 1 gun, which is the MG3, allows you to do more in close quarters combat than the Mark 14 does. Now, of course, will I take the Mark 14 over the MG3? Maybe not. The Mark 14 has not got the stopping power of the MG3. The MG3 can fire 75 rounds in a split second, it feels like. And that allows you to do a lot of things with it that you can't do with the Mark 14. You can clear vehicles easier. You can clear multiple targets on one clip. You can squad wipe with an MG3. And you can see this is the Uber loadout, the MG3 and Mark 14 that I'm running. And this is the number 1 CQC weapon in PUBG Mobile right now. And it's the number 1 weapon because It has 75 rounds, it fires at supersonic speeds, and has a wonderful time to kill. Now, the time to kill, in fact, is about the same as a Groza. The MG3's time to kill is 0.236. It's got a super fast 0.059 rate of fire at 990 rounds per minute, and a base round of 40. The key here is, though, it's incredibly accurate. Because it's got a bipod, if you drop shot with this thing, as you probably just saw, it does insane stuff. It just absolutely shreds people. And because you have, I mean, I just took out 2 targets there. I just knocked 2 people. And we got 3 out of that 4 squad members there. We got 3 out of 4 on a wild push across the road because the MG3 is capable of filling it up at all ranges. And the fact that you have 75 rounds just means it is so much easier to make these decisions. You can run an MG3 in a Mark 14 or an MG3 in an M416, and the MG3 will fill in for everything. In fact, it is like having an M416 that does Mark 14 things. Like, look at that. Look at that recoil control. Insane. So I hope you enjoyed that video, guys. Number 5, the UMP. Number 4, the AKM. Number 3, the Groza. Number 2, the Mark 14. And number 1, the effervescent MG3. It was crazy to do this and see that there are no 5.56 weapons for me in the top 5 CQC weapons. And I guess that is just how it is these days. But either way, it is certainly an interesting list that has been heavily affected by the unified frame rate buff in update 1.5. Yeah. I'm Bushka. Please subscribe to the channel. Please watch some more of the videos. Be nice to your mum, and please stay safe out there. It's a tough time around the world at the moment. The nicer we are to each other, the more likely we are to come out of it together. Till next time, bye for now.